Hello again. This is the third video of the four videos that we've been promising to do in relation to reducing and stop suicide. This video is probably the most important one because this one is for family and friends and when I've been looking at this and trying to put something together for you guys, it really jumped out with me that family has a huge part to play. Friends have a huge part to play because we're all family, we're all friends. But in particular, how a young person is brought up can prevent people from taking their lives, and it's a bigger responsibility, and it's probably too much to cover in relation to this video because I do want to really focus on, well, what happens, because it's a question that I get a lot. What happens and what do I do when somebody is suicide? When a loved one is struggling, what do I do? And we're going to focus on that today. And maybe in the future we look at how to, I suppose, build somebody who's able to cope with difficulties and be able to look after themselves and they're responsible for themselves. But even no matter how much of a good family or upbringing somebody has, they still struggle. So we want to focus on that. This is, and like I said to you before, this is a very, very sensitive subject. And if anything comes up in this that for you and emotionally you're struggling, please ask for help and look for help. Because often what I've seen with family members and friends and people who are concerned about somebody is that sometimes they get forgotten in all this. They're the ones who get forgotten, but they're the ones who are closer to the person who's able to recognise what's going on. Everything that we talk about here and everything that myself and Francis are trying to do is about reducing and stopping suicide. And so how do you know? What I'm going to cover is how do you know that somebody's struggling, and what do you need to do to help them? Because sometimes the warning signs that somebody would have, and I'll go through what warning signs are now in a second. But the person themselves, because things have probably developed over time, and where somebody mightn't ask for help. In Ireland, it's almost like that we struggle to ask for help. We need to encourage each other that when we're not feeling ourselves, when we're not feeling okay, to ask for help. But what happens if the person themselves doesn't realise that they've got a problem? And that's the big thing that family members really struggle with. When somebody's struggling and they might be going down a road of gambling or drinking or using drugs or behaving badly, what happens if they don't see that that's an issue, that's a problem? They don't understand the risks involved, so we have to try to help them see that they're having problems and difficulties and address that with them. They mightn't understand the risks involved. They probably don't care at that stage. They've got so used to it. And as family members, what happens if you're taking the brunt of all the consequences and you're hiding and shielding that person for whatever reason? Like you might be frightened, you might be scared, you might feel guilty, you might feel worried about that person, and the person might use that in relation to just carrying about their everyday lives as if nothing's happening. How do you address that? And then how can you actually help somebody see that their life will be better if they do make the change, if they stop and face their difficulties and face their problems, because that's what it's all about. But again, like I said to you, most of the time, the person who's struggling, because it's something that's just happened and it's over a period of time, there's a process of it, they mightn't realise that they have a problem. They just think that's just the way it is, that's just the way they are. So recognising warning signs is really something that's really important for family members, and the key to it is addressing them early, especially in teenage years, going into young adult years. Warning signs are basically alarm bells. So anything extreme or anything outside of the norm. So if somebody's overly high or overly low or getting angry or, Now, these warning signs don't necessarily mean that somebody's suicidal or they're going to harm themselves, but there could be something wrong. If you can address what's wrong and address them and check in with that person, what you might find is that person might get a little bit annoyed and angry, and it's important not to get into an argument with them. Tell them how you're feeling, explain why you think that there's an issue, tell them how you're feeling, and explain to them what you'd like to see for them. You know, they might look differently, they might behave differently. Reflect that back to them. You might think it's a really obvious thing that what they're doing and what they're causing you and everybody else around them, but the person mightn't be aware of it. Tell them how they're feeling, how they're behaving. Describe how the behaviour is actually affecting everybody around you. And it's just something I'd always say as well, like, I mean, and arguments as well. If you get into an argument and you're fighting and getting angry, that's not communication. That's a fight and an argument. And nobody will listen and nobody will respect each other when it gets to that stage. It's important to talk from your own point of view, because every argument starts with the word you. Because it's an accusation. Try not to accuse or blame each other in relation to that. It's important that you find a safe place where everybody feels relaxed and comfortable, and you can relay your concerns and what you see as the problem. Listen to the person themselves and look to work it out as well. So the key to that is identifying the problems early and starting to address them. And it is difficult. There's no doubt about it. This is really, really hard work on family and friends, but it needs to happen, because we've all got our own lives. We're all working away. We're under pressure. We're paying bills. We're in work. We're doing things. So that one phone call or that one time where you actually just stop and ask somebody, is everything okay? If you notice it, ask it straight out. Is everything all right? Are you going to harm yourself? Are you going to kill yourself? If trust your gut. If you feel like somebody's going to hurt themselves, we need to get comfortable with asking a question straight away, making sure that you're safe, making sure that the person themselves is safe. And because we're uncomfortable, and because, again, in my experience and listening and doing different workshops and things like that and different trainings here or there, when we're uncomfortable, we will say the wrong things. So it's important not to say things like, oh, I hope you're not going to do something stupid. And the reason that it's important not to say, I hope you're not going to do something stupid, is because if somebody's thinking about harming themselves and they're feeling that low that they think that the world is going to be better off without them, now they think it's stupid, so they're not going to tell you. If you say things like that, please stop. Really, just, are you okay? I noticed that you're not feeling well. I noticed that you're not yourself. And, really, and I know it's hard, because you might be uncomfortable and you might be feeling upset and scared that that person's going to harm themselves. You might actually be annoyed that they're not changing the behaviour that they want to change. Another thing as well is, look somebody in the eye. Normally when somebody's struggling, they don't want to stay around you too long, because they know that you know them. Ask them to stop. Ask them to have a chat across the kitchen table maybe. Look them in the eye. The eyes don't lie. Ask them. Get the balance between what they're saying and what they're doing. So they might say, I'm fine, but reflect back to them. Yeah, but you're telling me you're fine, but I noticed that you're really staying in bed a lot and you're drinking a lot or using drugs a lot, or I noticed that you're struggling to pay bills, and to reflect back what you're seeing and what they're behaving, how they're behaving. This is all about you as a family member doing your maximum best to make sure that you can intervene as early and as well as possible. And ask for help if you're not sure as well. That's the key to this. Asking for help, because I suppose we keep talking about stigma around mental health issues and suicide, and it's a massive problem. And it's not until I started doing these videos and started putting things together that there's loads to this. And I think it's one of the biggest reasons why people aren't addressing it, is because there's loads to consider. The community, the government, the person themselves, the family, the upbringing, the opportunities and the employment. So there's a lot. And the only way we can break that stigma is by talking about it. Young men in particular, just been asked, just get on with it. Just get on with it. Just ignore it. Just get on with it. So family members and everybody else says the same thing. Oh, you got a problem. Oh, yeah, but I've got a bigger problem here. We don't respect the fact that we all have problems. We need to work them out. The only reason that you should be looking at problems is to find solutions to them early. And as a community, we need to actually I feel that we need to actually look at problems like that early, address them early. The old saying is prevention's better than cure. And like I said at the start of this video, prevention is a huge thing that we'll probably add another video in relation to that, or we'll look to help people prevent it before it even happens. Because if we can actually get to this stage where nobody's even thinking about taking their own lives, well, then it's only obvious that people aren't going to take their own lives. Another big warning sign might be when somebody might be looking to give possessions away, or they might sound strange, like they might be organising events and stuff like that, and it might be their way of saying goodbye. Trust your gut, listen to that. If you feel uncomfortable about what's happening with somebody, listen to them and ask the question, address it, support them, be there for them. Self-harm. A lot of people, you hear people down through the years saying self-harm is only a cry for help. It's that, they're not going to really do it. But there's something wrong. If somebody's cutting themselves or hurting themselves, or whether it's food or burning themselves or pulling hair, there's something wrong. If there's something wrong, address it before it gets out of hand. Really, really look to support that person. And if you're not the person, normally the family member is too close to help the person. But what you need to do is actually be there and let them know that you care and you love them and you respect them, and encourage them to get help and support them. And please stop telling people what to do. Think about it from your own point of view. Do you like anybody telling you what to do? I never tell anybody what to do. I've just learned down through the years that I don't like being told what to do, so I would never tell anybody what to do. So get used to just asking people what they want. Listen to them. Even if you don't agree with them, why does the person want to harm themselves? Why do they want to? Well, why are they having the problems? Even if you don't agree with them, let them talk about it, reflecting and trying to find out what the problem is so that we can help find a solution to them. Educating yourself as much as possible, and be careful where you do get information and on what sites you get. There's some really good reputable websites and stuff like that. Talk to your GP, talk to doctors, talk to services that you've heard good things about, and discuss plans. That even when things are going well, right now, if you're going well with family and things like that, talk about problems with mental health or depression or anxiety, and talk about what would you do if it happened. Have a plan. Plans are good. Sometimes we don't like planning things like that and talking about it. And I know a lot of people don't like talking about it, but we need to talk about it. We need to find out the solutions to these problems. If you see that somebody's isolating themselves or taking a lot of drugs or alcohol, or they're eating loads of food or binging here or there or anything outside of the norm, but address it early, go to them, involve them in their treatment plans as much as possible. Ask them what they want. Another thing to really look out for is after a big event, a really negative event. So if somebody breaks up or they lose a job or they're ridiculed or embarrassed themselves in the community, if they do something, like if they're grieving, if they've lost somebody and they're just not able to cope with the grief, and we just need to build that person back up and allow them, I suppose, when people are grieving or upset, there's a process for them to actually get out of that. And sometimes if people don't have the right coping skills at that time in their lives, they might get really frustrated and want to just end it all because they're not able to cope with it. So then you might need to get a trusted friend or a trusted person to speak to that person, because you mightn't be the person to talk to them because you're too emotionally attached to them. So it is about finding a really good space to have good positive communication. Let the person know that you do understand how they're feeling, but to speak from your own point of view. So respect is the key. Respect the person that's having the struggle, but really respect yourself as well. And it's all about compromising to try to find the solutions. So understand where the person's coming from. Ask for help if you need it. Look for a specialist service that can help you and the person. But don't lose sight that you might need help yourself, because as the old, you hear people talking about the plane and the safety procedures of a plane, where they talk about putting your own mask on first before you can help children. It's the same in life. You cannot help others if you're not looking after yourself. So yes, the person who's struggling, if they get well, you'll reduce a lot of your own stress, but it's still okay to actually say how you're feeling. So discuss safety plans with you and your family member or the person who's struggling. And if they are getting to the stage where you think that they might harm themselves, you need to supervise them, you need to get them help, you need to refer them to A&E, ring an ambulance, make sure that they don't have access to anything that could harm themselves, like knives or ropes and things like that. And but always speak to them and tell them why you're doing that. Tell them why you're doing it and look for help. And I suppose, and it's easy to say this from this point of view, but we need to be patient with the person who's struggling as well. So I am really sorry if any of this is happening to you. If you've gone through this in the past, I'm really, really sorry as well. And but I do believe that people will understand why we need to talk about this. Even if you have lost a loved one to suicide, we need to make sure that the next person doesn't lose somebody to suicide. And as the old saying goes, prevention is always better than cure. So let's look at putting prevention plans in place by recognising warning signs, by addressing things early, and it is a massive problem that we need to put a plan in place to sort out. As I've said before in previous videos, 480 people and 480 families a year in Ireland. So ask somebody if they're struggling. Are they okay? It is hard, it is difficult, but that one question, are you okay, could save somebody's life. And the only way we can remove this stigma of suicide and when people are having problems is by talking about it. We need to look at the weaknesses. There's a huge amount of weaknesses in this country, and we need to actually work on building up our strength, because if we can build up our strength, we're going to be a stronger community. We are trying to help people who are struggling, and we want to help people become more aware of how they're feeling, understand how they're feeling, and learn how to get stronger. You as family members are really important. And please share this video to anybody that you think might be, even anybody you're not sure, but you think they might. Put it out onto Facebook, because you never know who is listening, who might need that bit of support. Thanks a million for listening. See you soon.